Control your thoughts. Stay high vibe. Everyone says this all the time, but that's so much easier said than done. Truth be told, life is not always fun. Sometimes we just want to run or cry or wail into the sky. And that's important too. So let's not deny that alongside the highs come the lowest of low lows. And that is the essence of which life flows. And by experiencing those is how our soul grows. But we don't have to stay down for so long that we stop moving along. That just feels wrong when we have so many options for how to progress. So let's focus on the areas of control we do possess. So I actually had no intention of starting this video with a poem, but when I sat down to think about what I did want to share, that just kind of came out. So there you have it. What I do want to talk about today is our relationship to life and our relationship to thoughts and mindset and all of those things that people talk about all the time. But the reason I want to address this is because, one, it is so important. It literally underlies our entire experience of our lives for forever is the way that we think about our lives and the way we feel about what's happening to us. I write a lot of poetry on the subject of choosing our thoughts, of choosing our reaction, choosing our experience. And I know that sometimes that message can do more harm than good when it implies that if something doesn't go our way or if something is not working out for us, that it's our fault. And that is never my intention. And I don't believe that's most people's intention when they're sharing this message of choose a good attitude and have a positive mindset. It's not to say that when we have a negative experience, it's our fault. There are objectively some things in life that we cannot control. Some things happen to us that it just happened to us. And so it's our responsibility to think about how we respond and how we react to that situation. But ultimately, we cannot micromanage our emotions. So thoughts and emotions are different things and they influence one another, of course. But sometimes we may experience a feeling that we didn't expect, or we didn't intend, or we, quite frankly, didn't want to feel. But that's going to happen. And it's important that we give ourselves permission to experience all those feelings. And we can look at how we relate to those feelings to improve our overall quality of life and how we navigate it. So we can try to optimize our circumstances and our mindset so that when things don't go exactly how we'd anticipated, we're better able to navigate those experiences. So the main idea of this is I've concluded that everything in life really comes down to our relationship to that thing. So it's not necessarily the external circumstance that matters, it's the relationship we have to that external circumstance. And this is true for literally everything in life. It's not about the job you have, it's about the relationship you have to that job, the way you feel about that job. It's not about if you're married or single, it's about your relationship to being married or dating or single or whatever. It's not about having a ton of money, it's about your relationship to having that much money or to not having money. It's not about the home you live in, it's about your relationship to the home. And so that is, it may sound very obvious, but when we have that perspective that, okay, external circumstances will be what they are, but it matters most how we feel and how we think about those circumstances, those situations, those people in our life as well. And what I think is so cool about this perspective is it means we don't actually have to change anything on the outside. If we don't want to, we can literally do all of this work internally. Now, sometimes we'll want to change our external circumstances. Sometimes getting a new job would be the best option. And other times it's just improving our relationship to where we're currently at. And so I think that's a really cool and really empowering perspective to have, because it means that we can shift things instantly by addressing our mindset and our perspective and our overall relationship to whatever it is that we're feeling unsettled about. So let's take a simple example. Let's say you're waiting in line at the DMV, and not always the most fun experience. A lot of people don't like waiting in line. It's boring, it makes people impatient. So, when that happens, we have two options, and this is true for everything. Option one, we change the circumstance. So, perhaps you go home and come back to the DMV at a time when the line is shorter. That might be a little complicated because you don't necessarily know when the line is going to be shorter. Maybe you need your paperwork done today, but let's just say that's an option, is you change the circumstance. Option two, you accept the circumstance and change your relationship to it. So instead of having the relationship to waiting in line as a negative one, of being one of frustration, one of impatience, one of boredom, you can change your relationship to that experience. We can do that in a few ways. One, we stop complaining, stop the negativity around it, because if you're waiting in line, complaining about how long it's taking, or how bored you are, or how frustrated you are, or how you have to be a million other places other than this line right now, it's not going to make the line move faster. You're going to be there regardless. So you might as well enjoy the 20 minutes you're in line as opposed to complaining and feeding the negative relationship. Then we can foster a more positive relationship by thinking about it differently, of accepting, okay, I'm waiting in line right now. And then we can take action to make it a better experience. So for example, it can become, I'm so grateful I now have 20 minutes to read this article on my phone that I've been wanting to read. Or you can use that as an opportunity to practice your social skills and chat with the strangers in line with you. Now, a lot of people will probably just use this opportunity to scroll through their phones, and that's certainly an option, but you can make it something productive. You can maximize your time and say, wow, 20 minutes where I have no obligations except for standing in this line. With our cell phones, there is literally so much we can do in those 20 minutes. Or you can practice mindfulness. Say, I'm going to do 20 minutes of just being present, of being still, of focusing on my breath, of knowing there's nowhere else I need or have to be right now. So it really comes down to how you react to the situation. And it may not sound fun to do that. You may think like, oh, but I just want to complain, because complaining feels good at some level, but really being annoyed to me is not a pleasant experience. And so if you have the option to choose being annoyed for 20 minutes in line and complaining about it and being frustrated, or focusing your attention on something else and then letting the time pass without feeding the annoyance, that to me feels so much better. Giving into the complaining, yes, it can feel good. It's like scratching an itch. It feels good in the moment, but long term, it's not going to be gratifying. It's not going to be satisfying. And so I personally think optimism and seeing the glass half full, focusing on the positive, is very logical, because the alternative is to experience negative emotions, is to feel icky, to feel bad, to indulge in pessimism, to indulge in cynicism. Those things don't feel good. And they may be quote unquote realistic. Yes, you are standing in this line when there are other things you could be doing at that moment, but you're not doing them. So it is illogical to give our mental, spiritual, emotional energy to something that we cannot change. Ultimately, choosing to have a good attitude is very logical, because indulging in the negative, one, it doesn't feel good, and it really doesn't offer us much long-term benefit. Now, let's take a bigger example. Let's say you're working at a job you really hate. Again, we have two options. One, change the situation, get a new job. But often that's not as easy as it sounds to do, and you're not sure if the next job will give you the fulfillment that you're looking for anyway. So, if you can't change the external circumstance, or you're in the process of trying to change the external circumstance, but you're still in the job you don't like, the second option is to accept where you are and make the most of it. Because guess what? You're going to be there anyway. So you might as well focus on the positive, focus on the good things, focus on what you're learning, focus on things you're doing well, and how that might help you in the future. And sometimes that's really hard. If we're feeling like, oh my gosh, this is really tedious, this is boring, there are so many better things I could be doing with my time and my energy and my talent, I don't want to be here anymore, it's really easy to fall into that trap of frustration and negativity. And it's not really good for us. So when we recognize it doesn't feel good to do that all day, every day, it's going to drain you and make it harder for you to have the energy to look for a new job and to apply for a new job, compared to being grateful for where you are and recognizing that just because you accept where you are doesn't mean that you'll be there forever. Two things can be true. We can say, I'm super grateful for this job I have now. There are a lot of positives, and it's not what I want to be doing forever. And it won't be what you're doing forever. If you have a more positive mindset around the thing that you're doing, I suspect you'll have more energy to apply for other jobs. You won't be drained at the end of the day from complaining all day long and being bored all day long. You'll be more motivated to go out and find something. Now, of course, people are sometimes fueled and motivated by the negativity and say, I'm so bored and frustrated, I have to go find another job. And that's great. Well, it works too, but it's not going to feel as good. And then sometimes we end up choosing another option from a negative place or out of desperation, instead of teaching ourselves that, hey, I can be happy anywhere. I can be happy doing any job, because it's ultimately not about the job. It's about my relationship to the job. And ultimately, it's about who we are as a person. So if you're a person who values hard work and loyalty and fun, or whatever it is that you value, you can apply that to anything in life that you are doing. But it's kind of a digression, a topic for another day. But all of this is to say, if we have a good relationship to ourselves and to life in general and to the job in this case, then it doesn't matter what the job is. You'll be having a more positive experience. I am a speech coach, and I always tell my clients before presentations, look, you are going to be giving this presentation, regardless of how you feel about it. So you might as well go out and have some fun. You could be miserable. You can make this the worst experience ever because you, quote, don't like public speaking. Or you can accept the fact that you're going to be doing it, make the most of it, and obviously these are people who are getting training, and so we deal with the negativity and the technical aspects of delivery. But at the end of the day, anyone has the option to say, I am going to be in this situation regardless, so I may as well have fun with it. I may as well make the most of it. When it's appropriate, sometimes fun isn't the best word. Sometimes we're dealing with something really, really heavy. And in those situations, it's not a matter of saying, let me make my taking care of my father with cancer a fun experience. But it's, where can I find the beauty in this experience? How can I transform this into something really meaningful, really heartfelt? And even though there's a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, it doesn't have to be totally negative. Because if we're in a situation regardless, again, it comes down to our relationship to that situation. And some things are objectively bad. You know, you say you get hit by a car. That's like not a good situation. But at the end of the day, we do have a lot of control over our reaction and how we respond to it. And everything says that attitude and mindset are ultimately the most important things when it comes to how happy and how fulfilled we are in life. Because I believe too that when we have a positive aspect and we improve our relationship to these different facets of life, we will end up attracting and creating better external circumstances. So for example, if you don't love the home you're living in, it's kind of small, it's kind of old, things are falling apart, it's kind of rinky dink, but you're a person that takes a lot of pride in your environment and your living space, and you do as much as you can to honor that space and to make it beautiful and to make it comfortable, then it doesn't matter where you're living, you're going to be happy regardless. And you're more likely to be functioning from a space that says, I appreciate my home, and therefore you'll probably have more motivation, more energy, and the more likelihood to attract in a nicer home or to do the things, take the steps necessary to buy yourself a nicer home. Versus someone who's always complaining that they don't like where they live and da 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 da. That doesn't give us a ton of energy. And then once they do find a place that is objectively nicer or bigger or newer or whatever, they probably still won't like it anyway. And I'm kind of speaking from experience here because I love when I walk into someone's home and it's really clean and tidy and cozy and well decorated. And I would love to be the type of person that has a home like that. And I always blame the house I'm living in on why it doesn't have that feeling, why it's always cluttered, or why the decor is not so nice. And now I'm living in a really adorable home that would be perfect to decorate. It makes so cozy and cute. And it's fine. I like the decorations that I have, but it's me. It's my relationship to my living space. I don't take the time and energy that some people take to make it so beautiful and comfortable. It is nice. I will say that. But it's not like, oh my gosh, I love this space. So that's just an example of where our personal relationships to different aspects of our life can play a role in our external circumstance and experience. And obviously we each have different values. So for me, if I want to prioritize my home, I can do that and I can make that a big priority. It's just not at the top of my list. And so that's why I haven't spent as much time on that as theoretically I would like, but I'm not doing. So we don't have to think about our relationship to every single facet of life in the same way. Not everything has to be totally perfect and happy and all of that and positive, and nothing ever is perfect and happy and 100% positive all the time. But looking at the things in our life that are causing us distress, that are causing us discomfort, and then saying, is there a way that I can change my relationship to this experience so that it feels better for me if it's a situation that I can't objectively change? So then how do we do that? I've talked a lot about changing your relationship to things, and how do we actually change the relationship? One, it's all about your thoughts. So think better thoughts. Find the positive in the situation. So again, the job situation, find all the things that you're learning from that job. If you're married but you're struggling with your marriage, find all the positive qualities in that person. Remember all the reasons you fell in love with them in the first place and all the things that are going well. When it's your home, think of all the things that you love about your current home or all the things that are really nice and clean. And then two, you can use those positives to tap into gratitude, which you may have heard is the most powerful emotion that our human bodies can experience. So much power and magic happens when we tap into gratitude. So that means not just acknowledging the good things, but being really, really grateful for them and taking the time to feel gratitude in your heart. It's not enough just to say, oh yeah, I'm thankful for this. You really have to feel it. Like, wow, this job is not everything that I've ever wanted, but I am making enough money to buy groceries and sustain my life, or to feed my family, or to pay my bills, to pay my mortgage, or I have really cool coworkers. I'm so lucky that I have these colleagues. I'm so grateful that I've learned this skill. There's always something positive to find. And then when we really tap into the gratitude of, wow, how would my life be different if I didn't have that? So you have a job. That's something to be grateful for. You could be homeless, you know? And so no matter what the circumstance is, find the positive and be grateful for it. And then number 3, I think in addition to that, we can also look at the negatives to the alternatives, because, they say the grass is always greener. We can look at another situation and think, oh, that's just so much better. So again, the job example, looking at another job and saying, oh, that would be so much better because of this. But think about the negatives. Maybe your hours would be a lot longer. Maybe you wouldn't have someone who's as efficient taking care of your payroll. Maybe there would be little tedious things that you don't have to worry about at your current job that you would have to worry about then. And this often is in the minutia that we don't think about when we're complaining about some situation, and we're only seeing the negatives because we're tired of it. But when we look at the negatives in another situation, in the alternative, that can often put things into perspective and remind us why we're in the situation we're in the first place. Even the waiting in line example, what are the negatives to coming on a different day? Well, maybe then your documents would be late. Maybe you'd get fined. Maybe you would try to come back again and they would still have a long line. Then that's a big waste of time on both days. So looking at, is the alternative really all that great, can help improve our relationship to the current thing as well. And then number 4, the really, really important piece is, even though we can accept where we are and improve our relationship and our mindset around it no matter what, we have that power, we can also start to take action to shift little things about the situation to make it better. So for example, you don't like your current job, well then take action of spending 20 minutes a week looking for new jobs, or once a week getting coffee with someone in your industry who could potentially introduce you to someone else at a different job, taking action to change the situation for the better. Sometimes we feel like it's black and white, like, I don't like this job, so I got to get a new one. And if I don't get a new one, then I just got to love this job. But there are some gray areas. You can be at one job and love it and learn to love it and be grateful for it, and start taking action to plant the seeds for the next job, or to shift things around to make it a better experience. You can, for example, take action to improve your marriage. It's not just saying, oh, I'm going to choose to love this person even though I'm really unsatisfied right now. I'm going to find what I'm grateful for and I'm just going to make it work. That's great. We have to start there. And you can read books on the topic. You can go to couples counseling. You can take action steps to make the situation better. It's not all or nothing, accept it or change it. It's accept it, change it entirely, or make small shifts as you go from a place of positivity, I recommend. And then one other note I'll say is, just try to keep everything into perspective and ask yourself, is this worth all the negative energy that I'm giving it? So for example, if you're stressing about a deadline you have to meet, but in the 20 years of your employment you have never missed a deadline, you can just trust it's gonna get done. You are going to meet the deadline. And all that extra stress about it is probably not serving you. It's probably taking away from your experience. So your relationship to the deadline doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, I gotta be so stressed and get this done. Your relationship to the deadline is, I've done this a million times before. I'm gonna stay calm, I'm gonna do my thing, and it's gonna get done. Boom. Because often that's the case and we stress ourselves out about things unnecessarily. Now, sometimes, obviously, we do experience negative emotions. And I plan to do an entire video dedicated to how to release and process negative emotions as they arise. But it is so important that when we experience that negativity, we process it. So I do not recommend thinking, okay, stay high vibe, choose positive thoughts, and slapping a positive affirmation over your feeling of sadness. What I do encourage you to do is to start by asking yourself the question, what is my relationship to emotional processing? Is that something that you take the time to do? Is it something that you feel is unnecessary? Is it something you feel guilty about? Sometimes, for example, I feel guilty being sad when I think, oh my gosh, I have so many good things going for me. I have so much to be grateful for. Why should I be sad, or why should I be negative? And so just looking at our relationship to each emotion can be a really healthy thing to do. What is your relationship to sadness? What is your relationship to anger? What is your relationship to joy? Do you feel guilty feeling joy because there are so many people suffering in the world? What is your relationship to fill in the blank? And by starting there, we can learn so much about ourselves. And we can recognize that each emotion is providing us information. It's something to learn from. And again, I'll go way more in depth with emotions in another video, but that is just a little something to say. Please don't take away from this video or any of the poems I share about choosing our experience to say that we can't ever be in a negative space. We have to feel lows sometimes to have highs. And that's just part of the human condition, and it's a really beautiful part. So when we improve our relationship to the negatives, then we won't feel the need to bypass them so much, and we'll actually be able to use them to help us move along. I appreciate you watching this far into the video. If you've made it this far, I do want to mention, because I've alluded several times to the fact that I have some poems on this topic. So I'm going to link those in the description, or they're going to pop up somewhere here, and you can watch those if you're interested. But they talk about, again, grappling with the highs and the lows and the power of choice, and remembering we do have so much agency over our experience of life, and it can be whatever we make it, regardless of external circumstances. People make themselves happy living in a cardboard box, and sometimes simplifying life brings so much peace. I remember I visited Ghana, West Africa, and I was blown away by how the people in the villages who had nothing, they didn't even have electricity or running water, they were hunting and gathering. Like literally, they got their food from their land. They were so happy. They were just so happy. And I'm not saying that we need to do away with all of our modern conveniences, but I do think that when we recognize we don't need stuff to be happy, it's all here. And remembering that sometimes chemical imbalances happen. Sometimes hormones happen. Sometimes we don't get a good night's sleep and we're sad and we experience negative emotions. So we do need to seek the help for mental health as we need it. If you have a chemical imbalance, then trying to tell yourself, just be positive, choose happy thoughts, is going to be very counterproductive. So please keep that in mind and don't fault yourself for not being happy. But a starting point is to examine the relationship you have to different aspects of your life. If there is an aspect of your life that feels like a thorn in your side, if it feels anything but uplifting, then ask yourself, what is my relationship to this experience or to this situation, and how can I improve that relationship and or change the situation so that my relationship with it is better. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you got some value from this video, please comment, share it, and let me know what you think. And of course, like, subscribe, all the things. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.